So my wife likes listening to music when she's cooking or when she's getting ready. So I thought I'd make her a Bluetooth speaker for her sewing room where she also displays her vintage Pyrex. And this is the inspiration that I was kind of going from. So I started by collecting some things that I had laying around. I wanted to try to use as much repurposed items as possible, and I used some old Bose speakers, old clock that I had laying around. I started by cutting the acrylic to the dimensions that I had decided on, and then I used a home-built heater to bend the acrylic. It's just a heated wire that warms the acrylic, and then I can lay it on there in the desired position and bend it at 90 degrees. Once it's bent, I laid it out on another piece of acrylic so I could draw out the shape that I needed to cut for the sides, and I did this for both sides. I then laid it out on my table saw, and I used a piece of wood with parallel edges to align the cut that I needed to make to the blade, and then cut it. Did the same thing for the second side. And you can see here how the finished sides are cut to match the box that the speakers will be mounted in. I then laid out the position of both the speakers and the clock and drew that on the box. Then set out to cut the shapes that I had drawn. I found it though difficult to cut completely because the base of the jigsaw was hitting the top that I had cut. At this point you can see though that the acrylic broke on me. So I had to change my plans and cut off the front of the box that I was building, and I decided I would add a piece of acrylic instead to the front of it. So instead of having the sides removable, I decided to glue the sides on and place the front on as a removable piece. So this is just gluing using acrylic cement and gluing the sides on. Here I'm cutting off uh, another piece of recycled acrylic to the dimensions for the new front for the box. Again, laying out the clock and the speakers on the front and drawing that on there. What I'm doing here is I'm cutting out a template for the speakers so that I can fold it and in actually three directions to determine the center point, marking the center point, and then I can use that to mark the center point on the acrylic, cutting out the area for the clock. And then I can take this over to the drill press and cut out the circles for the speaker. Just cleaning up some of the extra acrylic so that the clock will fit into position. And now I'm just marking the position of the holes for the speaker so that I can take it over again to the drill press and drill holes, mounting holes for the speaker. I'm adding some acrylic pieces so that I can attach the faceplate to the pieces of acrylic, which will hold the faceplate in position. And then determining the angles that I had cut on the sides and trimming off the excess that was created when I had to cut off the broken faceplate. Now I'm going to glue the clock into the faceplate. I'm using just regular Bondo here, not only as an adhesive but also to fill the small gap between the clock and the faceplate. Once that is set up, I can sand off the excess where I need it removed in order to fit the faceplate into the box without the Bondo getting in the way. Now I'm removing the extra Bondo and making everything flush on the faceplate. Also, part of this is roughening the entire surface of the faceplate so that the paint will adhere to the surface better. And again, same thing on the entire box, just roughening the surface for the paint so it'll adhere better. And at this point you can see what it's going to look like with the faceplate in the box. Wiping it down with some paint thinner to remove the dust so that I can have a clean surface to spray. And then using some spray paint just to coat the entire outer surface with the color that will match the Pyrex in my wife's vintage Pyrex room. Now that I have it painted, I move on to the electronics. I'm using an old power supply that will work with the amplifier board that I purchased. Just to remove the power supply cord so that I can shorten it. I don't need but just a few inches inside the box. So I solder that on and then use some hot glue to strengthen that area. Now I'm adding some push buttons that I can put on the inside of the box that will stick through the back and use for volume up and volume down. I've got those attached to the amplifier board, and I'm connecting now the power from the 110 volt power using a stress relief to attach that into the back of the box, and hot glue the power supply to the bottom of the box, and then attach my speakers into the amplifier board. And then hot glue the amplifier board to the bottom of the box. And at this point I'm hot gluing the volume up and volume down buttons to the back of the box where they project through to the outside. And I've got everything attached. I'm going to attach the speakers to the faceplate. And then putting the clock into the faceplate and securing that with the screws. Putting the power supply and then powering it for the first time. Testing the buttons on the back of the box to make sure the volume up and down buttons work, and then also that I can control it with my phone. Adding the time adjuster extension and then connecting that with the faceplate. And there it is, assembled. Now what I'm doing is I've cut out a template for the speaker covers that I'm going to use. I'm using a piece of metal that will adapt and fit over the speakers. Putting the clock back together. And there it is, pretty much what it's going to look like, besides not having the speaker grills on. Now I'm using an old t-shirt as my speaker cloth, and then some super glue here to glue the speaker cloth to the grills that I'm going to use. Now I'm cutting off the excess on the back side and then gluing everything to the front of the faceplate. Painting the screws that are exposed with some white paint, just spray paint that I put up, and then here it is finished. This is my wife's Pyrex room, which she also uses for sewing. She wanted a vintage look, so that's why I made the speaker to match the inspiration that I had. And there it is. I'm happy with the way this turned out. It sounds great. And my wife's also happy with it because it matches the character of her vintage Pyrex. I'd like to just take a moment to thank Kirby from Kirby Meets Audio for his inspiration in building Bluetooth speakers. And I'll put a link in the description below. Check him out.